How you doing? My name is Gino Guevara and I'm a martial arts marketing expert, and what I do is I show you how to get more students, and we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects in martial arts is sales. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to expose 5 different sales myths that I hear all the time that are incorrect. Okay, so the first one is one of the myths that I hear is that everyone is a prospect. Now that would be great, but that goes against what we call a target market. In other words, when you first, at least when I opened up my school, I knew that there was a specific person, a specific demographic, a specific psychographic, exactly where they are, because I knew that they were the highest qualified, predetermined, pre-qualified to want my services, okay? So what that means is that by targeting my market, I knew which prospects to go after and which I didn't want to go after. So if somebody tells you that everyone that you're talking to is a prospect, you know, that's actually a sales myth, because not everyone is. If that was the case, then you wouldn't need a target market, right? So I hope you guys kind of understand is that not everyone is a prospect. I want to make sure that I'm going after the most highly qualified, predetermined prospect that I know that's the most likely to buy from me. Okay, so that's the first myth that you hear a lot. The second one is if I'm not making sales, what I need to do is I need to get better at overcoming objections. Okay, now this is another myth that you're going to hear specifically in the martial arts industry, because that's what I heard, and not even in just the martial arts industry, but in sales is, you know, become a better closer, get better at closing. Well, that's not necessarily true. What I've found is that objections are symptoms of the problem. They're not actually the problem. In other words, if I learn how to create value, how to offer a solution to the problem that my guests are coming to me, rarely do I get objections, okay? Because what I've done is I've created the value of the program to outweigh the cost. Okay, if the cost of the program outweighs the value according to your member, no matter how many objections you come or you try to handle, they're not going to do it because they don't see the value in the program. So you don't want to necessarily get better. Yes, you do have to handle them and you do have to practice. We train on them, but what we focus primarily in on is the need analysis portion of the sales process, which means we get better at building the value so that way we don't have to overcome as many objections. Okay, so the whole idea is to get better at the sales process so that way you have less objections that you have to overcome. Okay, so that's the second myth. The third one is what I call a cookie cutter sales method. In other words, if you go out and you buy a product and they say, if you just learn how I say my process or how I do my sales, then that's another myth, okay? Because the whole idea is, yes, the process can be the same, the needs analysis, the process. However, each person is coming to you with their own problems and that are different. Everybody's different. So the process is going to be the same. However, offering a solution is going to be different for different members. So somebody that might come to you might be coming to you for self-defense. They're learning how to they're wanting to defend themselves. So when I offer a solution, what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer a solution based on how to defend themselves. Okay, maybe somebody else is coming in that they're looking how to build confidence. Why am I going to offer a cookie cutter method that tells them about how to lose weight when what they're looking for is they're looking how to feel better about themselves? So the cookie cutter sales method is an old myth, an old trend. Getting them to say yes over and over again is another myth that I found. So ideally what you want to do is you want to have a process that is personalized, that wraps around your big idea, your core concept, that explains and separates you from everybody else, and at the same time is personalized and customized to what that guest is coming to you for. Okay, so that's the third one. Number 4 is making more calls. Now, don't get me wrong, if you're in sales, you have to make calls, okay? But the thing about it is making more calls. A salesman, ideally, the more face-to-face selling you can get, the more sales you're going to make. Of course, calls are going to help you get in front of more people, but ideally what you want to do is you want to be in front of more people rather than making more calls that are pre-qualified, that are determined to buy your program. And I'll explain a little bit. So I have an example of number 4 right over here. I'll go into a little bit more detail. Okay, now the next myth is that good salesmen are born. Okay, I wish it was like that, but sales is a skill, is a specific skill set. So in order to get good at a skill set, what I had to do is I had to practice, learn the right process, and continue to train and continue to get better at the skill. Okay, because the skill is different. So what ends up happening is good salesmen, what you'll notice is that they learn how to do something very, very well, and they repeat that process, and they work continuously at getting better. Okay, this doesn't happen. They weren't born that way, but they were disciplined, persistent on how to get better at the sales process. So a lot of what you see, you might see the numbers and say, well, this person was just born that way. But if you look underneath, you're going to notice that they're doing a lot of the little details that help them become a better salesman. A good analogy would be a duck. Okay, so let's say that you're in a pond and you see a duck and he looks like he's just kind of very, very slowly, you know, just kind of floating through the lake. But if you were to look underneath the water, you're going to see him paddling his little feet as fast as he can, you know, and that paddling is what's helping him go through the water. So same thing, these salesmen, they're not born, they're actually made. Okay, so I'll give you a good example of number 4. Can you zoom in on this right here? Okay, so the reason why this is a myth is you want to make more calls is that, let's say for example, you're spending 80% of your time in calls and spending 20% of your time in face-to-face selling. Now, what I do is I spend 80% of my time in face-to-face selling, so I'm selling more and I'm only spending 20% of my time in calls. Now, how do I get this? How do I flip it around? Well, I've automated and I outsource my calls, so I'm not setting up the appointments. The appointments are being set up for me, so that way I spend the majority of my time in the face-to-face selling. They're doing the confirming. My team is automated. We have a system to where they're doing all this for me so that I'm spending 80% of my time selling. Now, if you really think about it, who do you think is going to be more effective? Who do you think is going to be making more sales? The person that's only spending 20% of their time in face-to-face selling, or the person that's spending 80% of their time in face-to-face selling? Well, obviously it's going to be this right here. So this goes to this idea of that's why it's a myth, is you don't necessarily want to make more calls, is I want to spend more time in face-to-face selling. So these are some myths that I hope I exposed that open up your mind to thinking a little bit different about the sales process. If you'd like more tips and strategies, go down below, click the link, www.sixfiguremartialartsmarketing.com, and you can pick up some more strategies. Have a great day.